Welcome. Hello, Greg.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. If I can just, before I forget later, say a big thanks to Accessibility Futures for sponsoring, organising and supporting today's events. So big thanks to Kerry, James and Linda. Welcome to the first Southwest Food Hub seminar, the first of many we hope, and today is focused on logistics. Just to sort of tap into the running order for you, we have, firstly, I'm going to give you a brief overview to the Southwest Food Hub. We're then going to hear from Carroll Nugent from Crown Commercial Services, who will talk a little bit about the Future Food Framework. We'll then from Ben Peel of Equilibrium Markets hear about the Bath and North East pilot. And then finally, we'll hear from Paul Wilkes about the FORS scheme and how that might integrate with this project. I'll then just wrap up, and I'm hoping and been challenged to squeeze all that into an hour. So it's a very tight agenda. We put some opportunities in there to ask questions of a couple of the speakers, but please keep firing the questions in, and those that we don't answer today, we will answer through social media and through the website after the event. So please keep the questions coming, but apologise in advance that we will only be able to answer so many questions today. Without further ado, before we kick off, what we would like to do is just run a couple of polls today to understand a bit more about the audience. So the first poll for today is, who are you? So please tell us where you're from. Sorry, James, you carry on.
I'm just going to say that should be now up on your screen. If everyone could give me a quick thumbs up just to say that they can see that, that'd be great. Collating those all now. Excellent. Should we grab get a few more in before we end that poll? Get a couple more in. Brilliant. We'll end that poll now for you. There you go.
Great, and we'll have a little look at the results. So lots of interested others in here today, and a few from various forms of logistics, which will give us an idea as to how we need to target future events, I think. Thanks, James, that's great. And as I say, we're not going to play good with polls, but we've got one more coming up a little bit later. So on with the agenda, I'm going to share my screen with you, talk you through it so I remember how to do it in this new world that we now live in, and tell you a little bit about the Food Hub. So Southwest Food Hub, for those of you who don't know, and I'm going to give a very quick snapshot, really the origins go back to the public sector intentions that were announced by David Cameron's government back in 2014. We've got plenty of information about that on the website, so I would urge you to go and have a look at that. But I'm going to sort of roll the clock forward to 2019, when, as an extension of my work with the Dynamic Food Procurement National Advisory Board, snappy title, Glenn Woodcock and I assembled a group of interested and informed connections from the food and drink industry around the sort of Devon area, really, to come together as a steering group and ascertain how we can help to support the ambition of the Crown Commercial Services to open up public sector supply to more small and medium-sized entities. So focus on Southwest. We were advised by Crown Commercial Service, and Carroll will talk a little bit more about that a little bit later, the intention was to run a pilot in the southwest of England. And as the momentum for that grew, we thought that the right thing to do was to formalise our intentions, and we formed the Southwest Food Hub into a community interest company in May of 2020. We did, at the early onset of COVID, run some activities through our original website to just connect food suppliers and buyers, as that seemed to be a really difficult thing at the time. But back onto May, and we focused our attention on this need to prepare the region. And then the Crown Commercial Service issued us with a memorandum of understanding asking us if we could just make sure that as this platform that Carroll will talk about goes live, there will be buyers and suppliers ready to engage. So based on the enormity of the challenge, it's the sort of proverbial eating the elephant opportunity. And we decided that a way to break this down was to hook up with the very proactive local enterprise partnerships in the region, and see if actually there was a way we could partner with them and break the area into segments. And we found, on the whole, them very receptive. Indeed, with the Heart of the Southwest, they were prepared to support us not only with physical people joining the steering group and our boards, but also financially to put some funds into the pot to help us to set up this central hub and also sponsor and fund some project management. We also have been successful with the West of England Combined Authority, where Chrissy Story is actually feet on the ground from the 1st of October, and working with the institutions and buyers and sellers in that region. Other LEPs in the region are engaged, and we hope to be able to share some positive news about their engagement in the near future. But we have now got a way in which we will work throughout the regions, and we're able to work at a pace that we think can inform as many people as possible about what we are trying to achieve. And really, we see ourselves as the facilitators, and we see our role as making sure that anybody who has any interest and a potential to get involved, we want to make sure that they are aware of what the project is, of how they can get involved, and when they should get involved, plus provide some support in the areas that are needed to get people on board. So, for example, it might be with producers that need some help to get to the accreditation levels that will be required as an entry point to the platform. Just as a snapshot, the public sector spend in the UK is about 1.2 billion on food and drink, so it's a very sizable category. And just flicking back to the plan for public procurement in 2014, Liz Truss quoted there's a potential £400 million opportunity for agriculture-based suppliers if a third of produce supplied to public sector could be sourced from small and medium-sized enterprises. So we've now created the mediums to keep in touch with people. The website's been up and running for a while. There are some final tweaks. I can feel Ellen, who makes everything happen in the South West Food Hub, sort of trembling in the background because I think she's frustrated that there's still some more recent tweaks to be done to the website, but it is live. There's lots of information in there, lots of opportunities to connect in there. And more importantly, you can be kept very aware of our activities and connect with us, because what we really want to make sure is that at every opportunity people understand at what stage the project is at, and how people can engage. So yeah, keep the questions coming, keep the connections coming, and if you want further information about the South West Food Hub, please go to the website. So that was my initial overview, which was very rapid as I promised. Just checking my agenda, and I think now it's left to me to hand you over to our first speaker, Carroll Nugent. Carroll was CCS Crown Commercial Service Strategy Lead on the Future Food Framework, and she's worked tirelessly with external stakeholders to develop what is being presented today. Carroll has actually moved on from this project, but has very kindly agreed to come back and present today. But she's moved on to take a higher level new role within the Cabinet Office. But you know, she's very big part of creating and driving this project, and she's left a very exciting legacy. So I'd like to hand over to Carroll.
Hello and welcome everybody. I'd like to thank everybody for joining today, and thank you very much, Greg, for that introduction. Today, I want to share with you the work that we've done up until now with regards to developing the Future Food Framework. It's been 2 years in collaboration with many stakeholders, the South West Food Hub and FORS being two of many. Today's presentation is going to be rapid, but don't worry, you will all get a copy of the presentation. But today's presentation is to show you where we are, but also to start the engagement with you as suppliers, as potential logistic processors, and to give you an overview of where we are and really understand from you how we need to build this that will allow you the ability to join us on this journey. So if we go to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I started on my first, there we go. I've already done that. It's like next slide, there we go. Thank you very kindly. I was talking away there. We've got a little bit of technical problems, so I'm not driving, I'm just talking. Yeah, the reasons why Crown Commercial Service are really looking at this alongside in collaboration with DEFRA is there have been numerous reports over the decades with regards to government spend on food. The one that's on the screen now is the latest one, which is the Royal Society of Arts report. And basically what it's saying is that we need to start using the power and the leverage of public purse spend on food to be able to allow small suppliers, both food and logistics and technical, to come into government spend. Next slide, please. When we engaged with our customers, they were saying the same thing. They wanted transparency on the food. They wanted to increase the number of small suppliers into the food supply chain, and also, as well as the food suppliers in themselves, the number of logistic suppliers into the supply chain. Next slide, please. So what have we been doing about it? We were very lucky in that we're really standing on the shoulders of giants, and that's the authority and the stakeholders who delivered the Bath and North East Somerset region pilot. It's the Baines pilot, and Ben, who's coming on after me, will sort of elaborate a little bit more on that. But in essence, it took a technology platform, and it took the dynamic procurement process contained in the procurement regulations to appoint suppliers onto a very dynamic platform. I won't even begin to try and tell you I understand the technology that sits behind it, albeit it will identify a buyer, it will identify the produce and the criteria against that buyer, and then it will identify the logistics needed to take that product from the supplier to the buyer. So next slide, please. And this is the important slide for the logistic processes and the warehouse. I've noticed on the poll, the warehouse suppliers amongst you as well. What does it mean for logistic suppliers? What is it we're coming to you to say, work with us in designing this? We require logistic suppliers who've got the ability to provide multi-temperature distribution hubs. The rules that we're going to put around the procurement at the moment that we're considering is we will have one hub within each of the regions. I'll touch a little bit about the geography of the regions later. So we need a logistics supplier who has a consolidation hub within the region that we've identified. And we want the suppliers to collect, consolidate and deliver the food, and hence it's logistic processes. We've titled it, as opposed to logistic suppliers and warehouse suppliers. It's logistic processes. The magic that Baines brought was that it identified that the smaller the region you have, the easier it was, or the more benefit was derived with regards to reducing your carbon footprint. As well as everything I've just mentioned for the logistic processes, there's also a possible future opportunity to be able to be a supplier of food on this platform. And when I outline the makeup of the framework later, you'll understand where you'll slot into that. Next slide, please. So I referenced the geography, and you'll notice there's that cute phrase across the top, nuts level 1. That is a EU reference to the territories within the UK, and in essence it's based on postcodes. So the pilot area that we're looking at in the southwest will consist of 2 regions, and the 2 regions will be made up from, if you look at the nuts level 3 there on the right hand side, those regions will be put into those level 3s will be put into 2 regions, and it will be the suppliers. So we will be looking at 2 logistic processes with consolidation hubs in both regions, who will then provide the service to the technology platform. This is the pivotal point of the pilot, because it's proving the proof of concept from the initial Baines pilot, because the Baines pilot didn't have 2 logistic processes and 2 consolidation hubs to take into account on the technology platform. They only had 1. So this is where the proof of concept within the pilot's coming from, because if the technology platform can do that, and then we are comfortable in then rolling it out across the other regions of the UK. Next slide, please. So this is what it will look like, the future food framework, which if you ask Greg to say later on, I'm sure he will say very eloquently. It's made up of 3 procurements, and Crown Commercial Service will run and manage all 3 of them. There's the technology supplier procurement, where we were going to go to market and procure a national technology supplier who will provide us with the system and the software that's developed and proven, that we will then use as the basis of our online platform. We will then use the DPS process within the procurement regulations to create a dynamic DPS, dynamic platform system, which will then give the small food suppliers the ability to come on and off the platform as and when their ability to, really, whether it's seasonal or there's an issue, or they've got to withdraw themselves for that moment, but then they can come back on. The third, and the one that we're focusing on today, is the logistics supplier. And as you see, we've moved on from that slide because it's now logistics processors, and they'll be regional suppliers. So those three OJUs will be brought together, those three procurements will be brought together by Crown Commercial Service, and that they will be the component parts of the online platform. And then at the bottom of that, you have the customer who will come in. Next slide, please.
Hi, Carol, you've got 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you very much. I need to rush through this then. Okay, so the online platform in conjunction with the logistic processors will bring tremendous benefits to not only how we source our food, but how we deliver our food in reduction of carbon footprint. Next slide, please. These two slides we're going to go through quickly are the capabilities and experience that we would expect from the logistic processors. Next slide, please. And they're there for you to go over at your leisure later on, so you can understand exactly what it is we're looking for and the processes associated with that. Next slide, please. We're looking at putting the UK into 17 regions with one supplier in each region. There is going to be some consideration around how many numbers we allow a single supplier to be awarded. The current intention is to appoint all suppliers after ITT is completed, but that is for Crown Commercial Service once they've started the engagement with suppliers to verify it. Next slide, please. So there's going to be ongoing engagement with CCSM, the South West Food Hub, and that's what Greg's touched on. Where they're going to identify a potential pipeline and then prepare suppliers to apply for government contracts via the online platform. So it's understanding what we're going to ask you, how we want it answered, and assurances and governance around that. So the next steps. The next slide, thank you. The next steps is what I've gone over, is preparing the processes to integrate and assisting it, again, along with the South West Food Hub. Next slide, please. There's the project timelines. The intention was that we would be going out to market towards the end of this year to appoint a technology platform supplier, but unfortunately we've had to pause that activity due to the national priority procurement that we're undertaking for governments to do with the pandemic. So they're in front of you are indicative timeframes, but we will keep you up to date when and where they move, if we can bring them in earlier or if they have to extend further out. We will keep you abreast of that details. I'm awful sorry for the rapid gallop through this, but we're here for you. Any questions, use the chat function, or please drop us an email and register your interest at food@crowncommercial.gov.uk. Thank you very much for your time today.
Brilliant. Thanks, Carol. Really good presentation that will be online. It takes a while and it's better to read and digest that presentation anyway, but that's now out there. And please keep the questions coming in and we will respond to them. If not as part of the chat today, definitely over the next sort of few days. So thank you very much. And without further ado, because time pushes on, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Ben Peel is from the operations team of Equilibrium Markets, who are involved, as Carol mentioned, in the Bath and North East Somerset pilot. And he's going to tell us all about that. So I should probably hand over to him right away. Thanks, Ben.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bear with me. There we go. Firstly, thank you very much to the Southwest Food Hub and Exeter City Futures for setting this up today. I'm here to tell you a story about how we at Equilibrium Markets took a fresh approach to food procurement with Bath and North East Somerset Council. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Ben. I've had what I believe is kindly termed a portfolio career to date. I've spent time in operations for Equilibrium Markets. I've led customer research for one of the UK's largest restaurant groups, run a small production kitchen for plant-based desserts here in Bristol, and many years of chefing and training in my pocket as well. As you can see, I've worn many hats in my time, and the story I'm going to tell you now is the most important chapter of it all so far. So to set the scene, In 2015, we were already an established consolidator of a wide spectrum of local produce and producers delivering to households in the Bristol and Bath area. This involved an online shop consolidating orders from multiple producers into a single doorstep delivery. During this year, we first met the forward-thinking team from Bath and North East Somerset as a local food strategy launch event and heard how the procurement team believed that there was a possibility of a better future for school food rather than accepting the status quo. The council wanted to link a wider range of local producers and suppliers to their school cooks to channel more sustainable food onto children's plates, as well as giving a financial boost to the regional economy and create a more sustainable and stable food network for the region. We could see straight away that this dynamic food procurement approach, combined with the potential of our platform, could deliver what they wanted. We just had to demonstrate this to the council before refocusing and upscaling our operations, all while retaining efficiency and profitability. We could see straight away that this dynamic food procurement approach, combined with the potential of our platform, could deliver what they wanted. Over the next few months, the council engaged and interviewed 18 companies, all with the belief they could help them on this forward-thinking mission. By the end, it came down to us, and they were able to see that we were the ones with the combination of tech capability in our platform and logistics infrastructure to deliver it. That was when the hard work really began. We are now responsible for delivering the fresh ingredients to around 42 kitchens, each cooking for between 100 and 1,500 pupils, a total of about 37,000 meals a week, with a combined spend of £750,000 per annum on fruit, veg and meat. Next, I'll take you through a few of the key elements of the project. Although as any logistics processor knows, all elements of the project process are key, and 1 week link brings the process to a shuddering halt. A key element was to have enough producers and suppliers on offer to give a respectable range, as well as generate stiff competition to keep the prices keen. However, we had to avoid having so many that the total volume of orders was spread too thin, which would have made deliveries unprofitable for them or fulfillment collections unprofitable for us. Many competitions were held between suppliers of the same items, with what in essence were blind bids for each product, and the most competitively priced items were listed. The result was dozens of producers and suppliers and hundreds of products which were all listed and assessed and put onto the store. While managing this many producers and suppliers could have been hugely time consuming, as many had their own individual fulfillment needs, the system was able to crunch this level of data with ease. It was also able to take the fulfillment restrictions and change the products it showed the customer dependent on the delivery time and date they selected. Since the pilot, we've created multiple stores for a single client, only showing the produce relevant to each department, while the platform again consolidated multiple producers and suppliers into one delivery. From a customer point of view, the ability to place one order from multiple producers and to be able to compare and contrast products and prices gave a level of control they weren't used to. Drop sizes, as we know, are key to profitability, and while some smaller kitchens were always going to need less, the ability to deliver all of their fresh produce in one really helped keep this at a reasonable level for the vast majority of sites. We also introduced further measures, such as reducing delivery days in order to change the widespread behaviour of putting tiny non-essential orders in. Since the pilot, we've also added percentage discounts off invoices for hitting drop sizes that are at a more profitable level. This balance of stick and carrot approaches has resulted in a change in customer shopping behaviour to one that is more balanced in terms of the needs of both the customer and the business. Some of the faster selling and longer life items were stocked, as you'd expect. Others were set to JIT, i.e. to arrive to us just in time. It was only through the agile processing power of the system that the juggling of live product stock changes and automated orders was possible. Although we replicated what we knew from existing logistics processes at the picking stage, the platform was able to throw up a pick list by producer or by the customer, depending on how we chose to process a product or an order. Delivery-wise, we routed the delivery to meet both the customer's desired delivery time and the fulfillment collections required from producers and suppliers that day. This was a huge challenge, but the efficiencies gained made it worth the effort. From a customer point of view, a single delivery made their life much easier, as they were only stopping prep to check in one delivery and had one point of contact for any issues or questions. Invoice-wise, customers also received a single invoice covering multiple producers and suppliers, reducing the work for their accounts team. The automation of ordering from our point of view made keeping track of what was due to suppliers simple. To sum this up, The tech platform automated generation of logistics plans with a clear, efficient course of action each day, both for fulfillment and from producers and delivery to customers. During the pilot, we hungrily fed on information from those more experienced than us and those with innovative approaches alike. What showed us that we were breaking ground more than we realised was the revelation of how many other food service providers had multiple systems propped up with manual data transfer or input in order to make them work, unlike our single nose-to-tail fully integrated platform. The results? The end of year one was a spend reduction for the council of 6% in real terms. Significant carbon emissions reductions also resulted from increased delivery efficiencies and the producer and supplier pickups. Around 20 local producers and suppliers were brought into the supply chain and were able to supply on terms that favoured them and the ebb and flow of their seasonal production. As well as short supply chains, they were all given shorter payment terms of 14 days or less, assisting in the cash flow of these small and medium enterprises. What was achieved wasn't easy, and each technical innovation that allowed us to come so fast, was more than matched with the mental and physical muscle of our team. Credit must also go out to Bath Council for setting up such a courageous aim that was and still partially is ahead of its time, and also not giving up when searching for a way to make it happen. I told you I was going to tell you a story. I'm sorry, but I fibbed. This is just the first chapter. We're writing the next, even grander chapter now. In this next stage, we're focusing on the tech and management aspect and looking for logistics processes to partner with. If you have the appetite to engage with us and to learn from each other and how we can use our platform, along with your logistic prowess to deliver more sustainable food to those who want and need it, please do drop me an email at the address at the bottom of the screen. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. That's great. Tremendous project, and very much, I think, how the future of food procurement might look. So just a couple of questions for you. I'll take one from the chat. I'll slightly adapt, and then one that we have in store, just to keep you guessing. But the one here, so there was a question, will suppliers deliver produce direct to the logistics provider? And perhaps you could tell us a little bit about whether that was the case with the Baines pilot.
Right. So that was a mix. There was quite a lot of the time we would have empty vans coming back from schools, and so we'd route those via any producer supplier that it was logistically possible to do so, to avoid the extra cost and the carbon cost of them coming to us. If it was certain products and certain producers, they would also deliver to the hub. So it was a mix. The end goal would obviously be to have to just do it all on that one route on the way back and never have an empty van. That's the dream.
Okay, and a question we sort of prepared for you is what was the most challenging aspect of the pilot?
The level of automation. So the number of different moving parts. So for multiple SME producers, the management, fulfillment, stocking, quality control. So when you put all of these parameters together, in the way that when they can fulfill, lead time, time of order, time of collection, I think it's around 400,000 different combinations being crunched at one time via the platform. So that's quite possibly why this hasn't flown in the past, is because it requires a certain level of tech capability that is only relatively recently available to be able to do that.
So is it moving on at the pace needed to be able to cope with the whole of the Southwest for this next part of the story?
Indeed it is. There's a lot of kind of thought and effort that needs to go into the processes that they're in their own right, but the tech capability is definitely there.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Paul. And sorry, not Paul, Ben. I'm going to talk about Paul next. So just to prove it was live, that was that slip. So obviously within that, that's how the technology can help, and I think that's fundamental to this potential change in the way food is procured for the whole industry, not just in public sector, is that technology is moving on at such a pace, and we see that in our everyday lives. But what is also fundamental to a good supply is actually compliance and safety, and therefore, particularly of particular importance in public sector. So I'm going to hand over to Paul from FORS, who's going to tell you a little bit about the FORS scheme and what sort of accreditations might need to be in place. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Greg. Let me just get my slides up. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul Wilkes, as Greg said, the Falls Business Services Manager. I'm delighted to be here today to answer the question of what does a good logistics supplier look like? So this is one of the questions that we were trying to help Carroll with when I spoke to her probably a year or so ago. And when you're thinking about hiring someone to do any kind of job on your behalf, there are a number of things that you want to think about. Will they do a good job? You want to get a good quality service. Yes, procurement is always going to be pushing for a lower price, but they still want the job doing well and in the right way. And in transport, that means that you don't want any accidents involving your goods. You want an efficient organisation so that you're not paying more than you need to. And you want to make sure that the impact on the environment is mitigated as best as it possibly can be. So how do you identify these companies? And on the other side of the coin, if you're an operator, how do you know what good looks like? If you're looking at UK legislation, EU legislation, well, for the moment anyway, and then any additional contractual requirements, how can you be sure that what you're doing is right? And how can you differentiate yourself from the competition? So if you're doing all of the right things, how do your potential customers know that's what you're doing and they should use you rather than another operator who isn't doing everything they should be? And that's exactly the challenge that Transport for London were trying to address just over 10 years ago, as they tried to raise the standards across their own transport supply chain to improve safety, increase efficiency, and reduce the impact on the environment, initially within London and then across the wider UK. And they did this by creating FORS, which is the Fleet Operator Recognition Scheme. And this is a voluntary, industry-led accreditation scheme that sets a single standard for fleet operators to be measured against. And it works for fleets of all sizes and covers all vehicle types, from HGVs and vans through to buses, cars, and powered two-wheelers. And today, FORS is the UK's leading fleet accreditation scheme, and it's adopted by about 5,000 members across the whole of the UK and beyond. And it's also specified by hundreds of organisations that recognise the value of using an accredited operator. So by asking for FORS, for a FORS accredited operator, companies know they're getting a good operator, and by being FORS accredited, operators can demonstrate that they are a good operator. And this is one of the things that we're looking to achieve with the portal, is ensuring that the operators that are operating and working and delivering through the portal meet a certain set of standards. FORS isn't just a badge, though, that you can just buy off the shelf. As an operator, you've got to pass an audit to prove that you meet all of the requirements to gain the FORS accreditation, and then an annual audit after that to maintain it. So how does this work? So at the heart of FORS is the FORS standard, which is a set of requirements that outlines exactly what good looks like for an operator. And the standard's reviewed regularly by companies who specify FORS, as well as operators and key industry bodies to ensure the requirements are still relevant and that they're in line with any evolving best practice within the industry. And the standard works by looking at 4 key areas. So management, ensuring that all of the key policies and procedures are in place and there's an organisation structure in place to effectively manage the operation. Vehicles, that the vehicles are well maintained and any defects are being corrected, as well as ensuring that all the vehicles, all of the relevant vehicles, are fitted with safety features as required. And for drivers, that they have the correct licensing and qualifications to do the job that's being asked of them, and that they're fit and healthy to work, as well as having completed specific safety training. And for operations, that the operation is managed effectively with routing and scheduling policies in place to minimise excess mileage, monitoring collisions and incidents, and managing operational performance. And for each of these areas, we provide a set of requirements and demonstrations, so it's absolutely clear what you need to do to meet the FORS standard. And one of the strengths of FORS is that, as well as providing the framework for what you need to achieve, we also provide a wealth of materials to support you on this journey. And this includes toolkits and guides to driver training, manager training, as well as access to offers and discounts to help you raise your standards. Now, there's 3 levels to FORS, and we're talking primarily about bronze with regards to this initiative. And bronze is our entry level, which takes the legal minimum requirements and it overlays this with an element of best practice. And we've currently got about 3,000 operators at bronze. And for many of our operators, this is as much as they need. But for those that want to look to progress onto silver, this is our intermediate level for operators who are committed to a higher level of safety, efficiency and environmental protection. And it's where we start to introduce some of the additional requirements, such as safety equipment on vehicles over 3.5 tons, such as cameras, proximity sensors, and audible turning alerts, as well as some additional training for drivers. And we have something called Safe Urban Driving, which is a DCPC course, where the drivers spend half the day in a classroom learning about best practice for driving in an urban environment. And then in the afternoon, we put them on bikes and send them off cycling around the city to scare the living daylights out of them and help them to switch their mindset to understand just the impact of being on a bike in proximity to such a large piece of metal. And then progressing on to gold, which is our highest level. And this is for operators who've demonstrated improved performance over a period of time and are creating new best practice within the industry. And this is where we start to introduce some of the longer term requirements within FORS, such as reviewing the potential for introducing alternative fuel vehicles within the operation and some of our higher training requirements. So we've taken feedback from our members from a variety of sources, and we're able to show some tangible benefits that FORS members have been able to achieve. So FORS members have seen clear improvements to their performance. And here you can see members have achieved a 12% improvement in MPG, a 14% reduction in CO2, and a 32% reduction in reported road incidents. And these all help with managing bottom line costs. And FORS operators have a good control of their fleet. And this is recognised by insurers who've given our members a £2.2 million saving on their insurance premiums as a result of this improved performance. And FORS members have also benefited from being able to access an estimated 7.29 billion of pounds worth of contracts from companies who require operators to be FORS accredited to work on their business. So you can see there's some real benefits of being part of FORS for you to go after. So what should I do next? So what we're looking for, I think, is for people to be bronze accredited within this. So if you are already a FORS bronze accredited company, then that's great. Continue as normal. Make sure that you've got your audits booked in. If not, then please visit our website, FORS Online. You can see the site there, where you'll be able to register. Once you register, you've got 90 days to book and pass your bronze audit. So it's worth doing some of your background research before you do that registration. And I would highly recommend that you look at some of our webinars. We have an introduction to FORS webinar and a going for bronze webinar. And this will take you through the audit process and explains exactly what you need to prepare. If you were looking to introduce FORS as a contractual requirement for your subcontractors working for you, then we also have support material on the website to help you with this. And our specifier toolkit includes some sample contract clauses that can be used, guidance on how to introduce FORS to your supply chain, as well as information about how FORS can help you track the accreditation of your suppliers. Cool. So that's it from me. So thank you all for your time today. That's the end of my presentation. I do have time to answer a couple of questions.
Well, just one embellishing on that last point you made. I mean, FORS is an accreditation that's being considered as an entry-level standard for this new initiative. That's those entry levels across all food standards and equally with logistics haven't been decided yet. But there is already a sort of strong relationship on the project between the CCS and FORS, which is why we've chosen to talk about it today. So just I suppose what I think people will be eager to ask, what does it cost to become FORS accredited? Yep.
So there are two costs for joining FORS. The first one is an annual membership fee, which starts from £65 per vehicle, and that's capped at 100 vehicles at just over £2,000 a year for that. In addition to that, there's an annual audit, which is £350 plus VAT for a small operator, so if you've got less than 5 vehicles, or £450 for anything over that.
Thanks. And you mentioned that there could potentially be some savings for insurance to offset against that. Do most insurance providers recognise the FORS scheme and provide better deals for that?
Yeah, many of them do. I've just seen the question come up of, do we have a preferred insurance broker that works on behalf of the members? We don't have one because we've talked to them, and it's actually when you try and work with a specific broker, it gets very complicated as to what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say without getting pulled into the governance of how they're regulated. So we don't specifically recommend anybody, but most insurers are aware of FORS and the benefits of being a member and will offer discounts on the back of that.
Okay, and I might have missed this earlier, but what vehicles need to be covered for FORS accreditation by FORS accreditation? Yeah,
so if you're joining FORS, then we say that everything that's based out of an operating centre would need to be included. So if you picked an operating centre to be FORS, then all of those vehicles, and it's all of those that cover servicing and delivery. So it would be any vehicle used to move goods around, and that covers everything up from powered two-wheelers, so motorbikes and scooters, up to HGVs.
Great, thank you very much. We'll let you off the hook there, Paul, but I'm sure, like the rest of us, if there are any questions following the event, you're happy for us to get in touch with you and pass them on.
Indeed, absolutely.
We'll respond accordingly. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
So, thanks very much for your attention so far. Just to check that you're still awake, we're going to actually challenge you with our second poll for today. So what we'd like to know is, to what extent do you agree with the following statement? The Future Food Framework, which is what we've been talking about today, will provide a genuine opportunity for SMEs to supply more food into the public sector. We'd like to know how agreeable you are to that statement, please.
Brilliant. Got lots of answers coming through now. So if you haven't participated, please do just take part in this poll. It's an important one for us, just to kind of glean where we are. A couple more. I think we'll share those results with you now. There you go.
Great. I think that's very encouraging, and I think that will stimulate us to work even harder, because we believe it's a significant opportunity as well. Thank you very much. So just before sort of moving to the summing up, I think what we're trying to make sure everybody understands is that this is a sort of almost a once in a generation opportunity to change the way the public sector procurement works. And I think one of the things, when we first started out on this journey, we thought that we were going to be disruptive. We were going to disrupt the marketplace with this introduction of technology. But not only has technology moved on to such an extent that we use technology for many of our purchases from home, also with the advent of Brexit and also the COVID-19 crisis, it's meant that everything's been thrown up into the air. And actually, dynamic food procurement could provide more of a solution than a disruption, because actually, what people need to buy in the future is going to be far more unpredictable, and also the response times, given what's going on, are actually going to be a hell of a lot less as well. So we think that actually the quicker that we can all, I suppose, push CCS to get the platform live and get people using the platform, the better, because it can provide a solution for lots of people. So just if I can just share my final slide for today. And really, it's just to say a big thanks to the speakers for joining us today. And I just reiterate that we're all there to answer any further questions post the event. I think that we've crammed a lot in deliberately so because time is very precious. But we're hoping that with all of the events, we can try and keep them into an hour, and then we can expand and keep that communication outside of these events. So, but we would invite as well any feedback on the event, because that would be very useful for us as we shape future events. And talking of future events, we are planning a further event towards the back end of November, which will be a more comprehensive presentation as to where we are with the Southwest Food Hub project and what the key next steps are. So please join us for that one. In the meantime, please join us through all the social channels. Thanks again to Exeter City Futures for sponsoring and supporting this event. Big thanks to the speakers again, and a massive thanks to Ellen, who behind the scenes coordinates all of these activities. So I think that I've covered everything there. I think that we maybe are just a few minutes ahead of schedule, unless any of the organisers would like to remind me of something I've forgotten, we can probably release people earlier. James, are we happy to close it there?
I think that's fine. If you're happy, you covered everything.
Okay. Then we wish everybody.
There is just one, Greg. There's just one question that's come up: is how do logistics operators get involved by the Southwest Food Hub or at county level?
Okay, can we take that and respond to that offline, because I think we deserves a more comprehensive response than we probably would be able to give.
Just saying it's there.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Chrissy.
Great. Well, just to reassure everybody, we are capturing everything that's in the chat, and that it will be shared with the Southwest Food Hub team so that they can respond to all of those questions. Excellent. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Carol, and thank you for everybody joining us today. Hopefully you'll be joining Southwest Food Hub in their future events, and going online and finding these presentations and responding to any of the questions being asked. Thank you for joining us today.